You and I are constantly bombarded by misinformation from politicians, celebrities, and media personalities who demonize guns and gun owners. Their accounts are contrary to my experience as a responsible gun owner, a retired police officer, and a professional competitive shooter. I have listened to their lies and I've taken their punches, but I refuse to stay silent any longer because I know a lot of women who have something to say and they won in the game. They're ready to play offense with the truth.
The truth is, we all want the same thing: to protect ourselves, our families, and to be safe in our communities. The DC Project is a nationwide grassroots organization made up of women from every demographic. We come from all different walks of life, but we are united in preserving our Second Amendment rights. As we share our experiences, we push back against gun control lies and oppose those who demand our rights be restricted.
As an immigrant from Venezuela, I saw how easy it was for freedom to die. My family and I watched tyranny destroy our home. In Venezuela, the media, celebrities, and politicians repeated the same anti-gun messages until people found it normal and acceptable to give up their freedoms. The reality is, none of it is normal or acceptable. Hungry and helpless, Venezuelans are now unable to protect themselves. Now, as a proud American, I am determined to guard against the same things happening here.
We constantly hear about common sense gun control, like universal background checks, banning assault weapons, ghost guns, high-capacity magazines, and gun show loopholes. Every city that is facing massive crime waves have put these policies into place. Common sense tells me that they don't work. So why do people still believe the idea that those policies save lives? Actual common sense is holding criminals accountable, not letting them out of jail or encouraging them to be more confrontational. Common sense is not stealing the right of the American people to protect themselves. This is the message that America needs to hear.
The DC Project works to reduce firearm accidents by campaigning for education in schools. We counter the false gun control lies by testifying in hearings and meeting our legislators. We equip our friends, our families, and our communities to know the truth. Gun owners are good people.
America is a beacon of freedom. The Second Amendment is vital piece in ensuring that our kids can have a free country to grow up in. We stand with the lawmakers who support the Constitution, and we provide armor from the attacks by the gun control lobby.
Join the DC Project today. Become a member, donate, or subscribe to our newsletter for updates on how we educate, advocate, and preserve our Second Amendment rights for generations to come.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
You here? I'm here.
I'm here. Yes, I am. You're sitting there looking right at me. So there we go. We probably can figure out that we're both here in the studio at the same time. So, hey, folks, thanks for joining us on Eye on the Target Radio. And this first segment is typically where we talk about what did we shoot, what did we do in the Second Amendment world this week. So, Rob, what did you do? You went to the range.
Yeah, I load bullets, and I've talked to 4 or 5 people, some of them off the ledge of buying something new and they'll be sorry for.
Oh, something new that's not so great?
The neighbor boy went and bought a new AR, and he's having all kinds of problems. The extractor wouldn't work in it. So he was going to take it back, and I'm like, let's just tear it apart and we'll fix it. So we got in there, fixed it, and so he was much happier than having to go back and deal with trying to trade it for one that worked or figure out what was going on.
So what did he have, like a burr or something going on?
It was just so tightly fitted in there, it wouldn't spring at all.
Okay.
So.
Good. So you got a new holster, and it took some time off your draw, right?
Right. It was funny because my friend is always worried about my speed because I'm slower than he is.
Right.
So he got me a new hog holster, and because I really like my old hog holster. And my new one is faster, like a half a second faster than my old one was.
Now, why would one be faster than the other?
I don't know. Just could just be how much tighter it is, or looser it is, or whatever. But it
maybe it doesn't have the grit in it from the.
It hangs just perfectly, and it's fast. So I went from like a 2 1/4 to a 1.76 on draw right away. So. I'm still hitting everything.
And that's a draw and hit. So that's the key. There's people who are like, I'm quick, and that they couldn't hit the wall.
And now I'm completely out of bullets by the time I would have just drawn the last time.
Okay.
So
that's pretty interesting. I've been rolling around what my next new gun purchase is, and so I haven't. This one's going to be a longer contemplation.
You need to just order it now because it may take you that long to get it when it finally shows up.
I'm there. I'm in the big long contemplation thing. So
buy 2. They're small.
Yeah. I want a bigger one, so it's not quite small, but there. So today I was the guest on Dan Waz's show, The Loaded Mike, and you guys know Dan Waz. He is the author of a series of books called Good Gun, Bad Guy. And so it's all about the fact that the gun is not the issue, the criminal is the issue. And so he gives facts and figures and all of that kind of stuff.
But you wouldn't think that if you see the news. I mean, the criminal, they just let them go because incidentally they would happen to be at the scene of the crime when it happened.
The scene of the crime, holding the tool of the crime, but past that, none of that counted.
Only 160 previous counts of murder on the guys.
We'll get to that story. We'll definitely get to that story. You're like, crime and Natalie. So other things that we're going to be getting to is we're going to have a couple guests that are on our show today. And so one of them is, we talked about the fact that I really like Tom Knighton's articles and his writing and how and what he writes and how he writes and that type of a thing. And so we've
humorous comments that he interjects into the
gee willikers. So yes, so we've invited Tom to come onto the show, and so he will be here at the bottom of the hour, and so that's good. Then the other guest is a U.S. Senate candidate, and we want to talk Second Amendment with him because I think that it's critical for us to start to get. I want to dig into a little bit of the deeper, not only what's his stand on it,
But how does he get prepped on the stand for this? You know, how do you sort of know what you know, but then when everybody starts asking you questions, how do you get the deeper meaning to each piece and part? So that's a little bit of the questions that we're going to ask to U.S. Senate candidate Mike Gibbons, who is running in Ohio to replace Rob Portman as one of the. At this point, I think that there's 7 or 8 candidates that are running in the Senate primary. So it's
a populous body.
It's a loaded field. There is no doubt, absolutely no doubt about it. So I've been working on the Concealed Carry Fashion Show. Tickets are online now. We've started to do some social media posts on the models, and some of these models you know who they are. And so over the weeks leading up to the fashion show, I'm going to drop some names so you get an idea of who's going to be participating and who's going to be playing.
I like this one more, like my non-modeling friend.
So there's a gal out of Chicago, or actually she's in the northern suburbs, so she's right on I think she calls it the Cheddar Curtain, right on the line between Wisconsin and Chicago. And she is going to the fashion show, and she's going to help out, and she's going to work the fashion show. But she's like, I'm not modeling. And I'm like, I'm putting together bios for models. She's like, I'm not modeling. So we put together a bio for her with a black picture that is just a solid black screen.
We'll put her right by the door. She's the one that grabs them and throws them out on the stage, so that
she's got the big,
they're out there when they're supposed to be.
The big Bo Peep hook. So line them up, move them out. Right, and she would be fabulous at that. But it was just so funny because we were having a little bit of fun on the I'm not modeling models and the model promos. But one of the models that we are, or I guess 3 of the models that we are having, is Kat Ainsworth and her husband Dusty Stevens and her son Bo. And so those who are in the 2A world have watched Bo from the time that he was a thought until now, and so they will have an opportunity to meet him on the runway. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with baby Bo on the runway at the same time.
I was going to say, does the husband even know he's involved, or he'll get the memo that
he got to see his picture promo, so I think he knows now. I think the cat's out of the bag.
I figured it'd be that day of, you don't need to know till now.
Here you go. Here, you push him out on stage. Wait, what? Right? Yeah. So if you're going to it, I'll let y'all in on a little secret, because we wanted to do something cute with the baby, and suppose maybe a year, just headed for a year, just somewhere right in that age.
So do you have him like a bug egg bag with all of his baby supplies in it? We
were gonna do something like that, and then we were looking at like a diaper holster, and then so instead we got him a blow up rifle, so an inflatable, so that he can come out with his firearm also.
I was going to say a blow-up rifle could be anything.
Right. It's not blow up like that. It's not gunpowder and kaboom. It's air, daddy, blow this up, right? So, but we just thought we'd have a little fun and take it to a whole another level. So it should be amazing, and it should be fun. So the funny part is that I have been reaching out to every different company that has participated in the past, that may want to participate, and still people are like, how come I've never heard of this? This is fabulous. I want in, right? I've never heard of it. And it's like, well, I've only been doing it since 2014, so give me another couple of years before it's fully mature. Right? I don't know what to say besides...
what do they call it? An overnight success thing.
Right. Exactly. I'm 20 years later, I'm an overnight success. Something absolutely like that. So we've gotten quite a few stories that are coming up, and then our conversations on the history. So Rob's actually done his history prep in advance, which is always a surprise, because otherwise it's, what are you going to talk about? I don't know.
About 3 minutes ago, she told me what we were talking about, and so that's my radio prep right there. So.
Well, we'll see how you do. We will absolutely see how you do. I mean, because believe me, there are people who pay attention Believe me, there are people who are paying attention to what you say.
You know, it's funny because it's just it's stuff that is already rattling around inside of my head, so it's not interesting to me anymore because I already know it. So it's if I had a list of stuff that people were interested in, then I could tell them about it. But as it is, it's like
what are we going to talk about?
Same old stuff.
Well, since I'm ordering parts for the broken one, let's talk about this, right? since we're doing that, let's talk about this. Each one of those kinds of things is kind of where we are with everything.
It's funny because one day I'm on a couple of those Facebook things for reloading and that, and somebody is asking about this pipe inside of a cartridge case, and I said something about it. They call it standpipe ignition, and the government actually started working with that, and all these people are like, I'd never heard any of this stuff before, but it's one of those things that you got to go in there and tap the priming hole, and you got to screw this pipe in, and then load your stuff, and then when you're done, there's no way to go back in and get the tube out, so you pretty much throw your brass away every time.
Okay, we'll be back right after this.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit ProjectChildSafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, so we are back, and so now the history section. We are going to talk about the history of
well, you want me to talk about the P380 pistol, and then, but I said we might as well just start with the 380
start at the beginning.
itself.
380 caliber, okay.
Well, Browning built the 380 automatic pistol caliber bullet in 1908 for a Colt in their little Model M, they called it. It was a smaller size 1911 style pistol. Okay. It was a direct blowback gun. It has a barrel that's threaded right into the frame so that the barrel doesn't move like the 1911 pistol does. The round really didn't catch on until 1912 in Europe. But as you know, the Walter PPK and the PP were real popular at that time, and so a lot of European police forces used it. In this country, we think of it as absolute lowest power pistol bullet that
the true underpowered, right?
But it's just a little bit under the power of a .38 Special. It shoots a 95 grain bullet at about 1,000 feet a second. It's not a toy by its thing, but it's not a Magnum either.
Well, and so like in the PPK and the PPS. Right? Those are the two that it was?
The PP and the PPK, yeah.
Oh, PP and PPK. So those were kind of the beginning of the really smaller guns that are of the bigger caliber smaller guns, that crossover.
Well, Colt made the 1908, or the Model M as they called it, and a lot of, John Dillinger had one, George Patton carried one. The government bought a lot of them during World War II for issue to officers and different people in they needed a gun, but they really weren't planning on using the gun, so they gave them one of those instead of a big full-size gun.
So it was carryable, hideable.
So for like a secretary or an aide to a general or something like this that needed a gun but wasn't really front line. And so then when the Germans came out with the PP and the PPK in the 30s, it was one of the first of the double-action pistols, and they chose that round for it. It actually is really close to the Russian, that 9mm Makarov or the 9mm Ultra. So apparently it drew their attention enough that they copied it to some extent. Their bullet's just a little bit bigger diameter than the standard 380 is. So they're not interchangeable, but they look almost identical when you.
Very, very close, because I mean when you look at a 9mm, because it's.
Well, the 380 has a 355 bullet, and the 9mm Makarov shoots a 365 bullet, so 10 thousandths larger diameter.
And then the 9mm is what diameter?
It's a 355 also.
Okay, so because the Makarov, which is the middle height one, is so it's the 380, the 9mm Makarov, and then the 9mm.
The 380 they call it a 9x17, and then the 9x18 is the Makarov, and then the 9x19 is the Luger.
It's the 9mm Luger. So the interesting part is, so they get progressively taller, but by a very small amount.
40,000.
Yeah, so a very small amount. And then, but the Makarov is just a little fatter, so you cannot inadvertently fit it into one of the other two guns.
It's about 10 sheets of notebook paper taller on each 10mm.
Right, not a lot. Absolutely not a lot.
Then the 380 just kind of went along for years. There was all these old pistols out there, but not really doing anything. In the 90s sometime, kind of woke up where people decided they needed one for in their pocket. So Kel-Tec brought out this little P3AT, which is about as little as you can get. It's almost the same size as the 380 bullet.
Right.
Thickness-wise and everything.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
And so they sold it. It was such a popular thing that when the patents wore off, everybody copied it to where some of the parts are almost identical, and when the gun breaks, it usually breaks in the same exact spot that the.
So the Kel-Tec manufactured it until the patent wore off, and then the patent wore off somewhere around 2006, 2005, somewhere right in there, because by 2008, the market was flooded with 380s. And so there was
that one year, almost every company bought a brand new 380.
Yeah, it was like 2007, 2008, right in there is when it was. And so the LCP came out, the Bodyguard came out. A little later to the game was the Taurus Spectrum, but they were all very much in that same
Well, that new
platform.
Smith & Wesson, what is the one they have, the easy cocking thing? That's actually a very good idea, and the pistol is a little bit larger than the normal pocket one. So
that's the next size bigger.
It's actually a good gun for women that don't want to deal with the recoil. The easy cocking feature is good, and the 380 does have plenty of power for what you want to do.
Well, the interesting part is when they first came out with all of these small guns in 2008, 2009, everybody was like, well, this is the concealed carry gun for you. You need to carry it. And women found that they didn't have enough hand strength to rack it, to load the magazines, to manipulate the gun.
Because of the gun being so little, all of a sudden there's nothing to get a hold of to actually
and so that was the guns that they were introduced to. And then when Smith & Wesson came out with the EZ line, well, it started with the EZ, the 380. Everybody jumped on that because, oh, look how much easier this is. And the magazine has like 22s have, I don't know what you call it, that little slide.
Things to help you load it and stuff, so you don't need a speed loader or anything. You just pull these down with your finger and drop the bullets in. There's a lot of thought went into that, the EZ line of Smith & Wesson, and I hope it's as popular as it should be, because it's a pretty good gun for what it was designed for.
For what it's designed for what it's doing. I mean, I'll tell you that on the women's forums where they're talking about concealed carry and the guns that they carry, there are a lot of women who carry the EZ as their carry gun because they can rack it, because they can manipulate it, because they can manage the gun. So it is not as small, as tiny as concealable.
Yeah, we run some of the 380s when we're playing. Mike has a couple of the Car PM 380 pistols. So the polymer micros they're actually really small. It's kind of funny that the way that slide release is built on it punches me in the thumb every shot. So after a couple shots, my thumb hurts so bad I can't stand it. But
you're like, okay, I'm good with this.
I just have to learn to hold it a different way. But
great.
I have a Diamondback in a 380, which is almost the same size as my 9mm Diamondback, so it really doesn't gain me anything by switching from one to the other. But I think the 9mm is just a little bit wider than the 380 gun is. But
yeah, I think so too. So it's really funny that there's like in that style there's the true micros. So let's say the Ruger LCP, the Kel-Tec 380, the Bodyguard, the Taurus Spectrum, and then you step up to the next, which is kind of the mid-sized gun. And so it's really interesting. They're really small. When we come back, we'll have Tom Knighton on.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Seffacool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, KRMAradio.com.
Okay, folks, we are back, and with us we have our guest Tom Knighton, and Tom is a Second Amendment, is a gun writer, and what's really funny is as I do the show prep for the show, I'm out searching around trying to figure out what are the biggest stories, what are the things we can comment on, where are we in stuff, and so what we end up with is it's crazy how many times I have a stack of Tom's articles because I like how he thinks and I like what he says. And so that is it. All of a sudden it became that I am like a fangirl to Tom Knighton. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that by bringing him on the show and letting you guys hear from him, find out how he got started, where he's at, where all he writes for, and all of that kind of stuff. So without further ado, Tom Knighton, I don't want your head to get really big there, Tom. So here we are.
Late.
Too late. We just expanded it, eh?
Yeah, my wife's just really glad. I'm really glad my wife's not hearing this because she'd be like, he's going to be impossible after this.
There you go. Well, it's recorded. You can play it for her. That way,
yes.
That way you can be like, look, somebody appreciates me. There.
That's right.
That's right. Okay, so Tom, tell folks a little bit about you and how you became a gun writer.
By accident. The story starts about a decade ago. A guy locally was just trying to get some liberty-minded people together, and I made a comment about, I'm thinking about starting a blog, and he's like, no, come right for me. You know, because he had this little local one going, and so I did, and turned out I kind of had a bit of a knack, and that led to writing a column for a newspaper, and that led to me eventually buying a newspaper, which led to me going bankrupt with the newspaper. So, and I was, trying to find something to put food on the table, and somebody's like, hey, we got to, this new startup needs something. And, so that's how I started getting paid for basically writing blog posts. And then things opened up at Bearing Arms, and, a friend of mine who I had talked to about possibly writing for one of the other town hall sites was like, hey, do you know anything about guns? And I'm a gun nut. I'm like,
no.
I like, oh, please throw me in the briar patch.
Right.
It's like, you're going to let me talk about my favoriteest thing on earth and pay me?
Okay, so you can't beat that. Absolutely can't beat that. So it is for you a full-time gig, and you are extremely active in it. And so where do you get your ideas, and how do you decide what you're going to write about?
Every night, and then again in the next morning, I go through the news feeds. I look up, what's going on with gun control, gun rights, just guns, violent crime, whatever. Always keep an eye out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, place like that. And then it's really kind of what sounds interesting, what, gets me angry. That's usually where the better stuff comes from, to be honest. Who's being a moron? That's always a real high up on the list. Those tend to be some good ones too. So that's kind of how I do it. And then once I start writing, I just get on a roll.
Okay, so one of our listeners wants to know, do you see a difference between being pro-gun and being pro-Second Amendment? And what is that difference, if so?
Yeah, but it's really a matter of degrees, because I could see somebody being pro-gun and going, well, yeah, but you shouldn't, be able to have this weapon or that weapon. Pro-Second Amendment is any arm, in my opinion. So, when Texas, legalized carrying swords a few years back, a lot of people made fun of it, but that was a pro-Second Amendment law, but it wasn't necessarily a pro-gun law. So, for me, pro-Second Amendment also covers pepper spray, stun guns, knives, swords, M1 Abrams tanks, pretty much anything.
Got it. Anything. So because I kind of agree with that, because it turns into the gun people. You'll find a shotgun guy that's like a Second Amendment butter. It's like, well, there's this but, and then there's this but. I don't know about that but. And it's like, no, that if you get to have what you want in your field, why does he not get to have what he wants in his field?
Right, exactly. And there's that's something we always run into, the hunters. There's a congressional candidate here who's like, he was asked a question about Second Amendment. So, well, I'm a hunter, and afterwards I'm like, you don't want to start with that, because the Second Amendment says nothing about hunting.
Correct.
Being a hunter is, a lot of times people try to use that as I'm not pro-Second Amendment, but I want you to think I am. If you value gun rights, if you value the right to keep and bear arms in general, you need to understand that hunting is, you can make a better case about banning hunting under the Second Amendment than you can about banning an AR-15.
So yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, because just to say you're a hunter means that you're a pro eater. I'm pro protein, if you will, and that's the way I go about getting it. Not anything else to it.
Right. And you could, banning guns doesn't stop hunting, because you have archery.
Yeah.
Saying, well, I'm a hunter. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care if you're a hunter. That tells me nothing.
Right. So what do you look for when you're talking to political candidates? Because in the next hour, I'm interviewing Mike Gibbons, who's a Senate candidate for the U.S. Senate representing Ohio. He's in the pack with, I think, 7 other candidates for the Ohio primary. It's a loaded horse race, we'll just say.
Yes, it is. Yes,
So-
that one is.
So what do you say to a candidate to try to sort out their Second Amendment words?
Yeah, it really depends on the candidate, because you look at their past history. there is I'm not going to name the candidate, but there is a candidate in Ohio who's running who in the past said some things that sounded an awful lot like supporting red flag laws.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote about it. Their campaign reached out and went, oh, no, they sent me a statement. The statement basically said, well, he never used the word red flag law. Well, no, but he's talking about taking guns from people who, before they do something. I don't know what else that's supposed to mean.
Either red flag laws or the thought police. Yes.
Right. There's really, there's no middle ground. Nothing, So, you look at that one and that particular candidate, he can sit here and say he's pro-Second Amendment, but I know that support is soft right now. Now, he made that statement in 2018 after Parkland. A lot of people got squishy right after that and changed their mind, realized, wait, this is a bad idea.
Right.
In fact, I have some comments in 2018 that can be taken the same way. I do not support red flag laws. But at the time, I was looking for, what can we do?
You're looking for what can you do, and you want to be empathetic, and you do react emotionally, because there's nothing that anybody wants that endangers children, and so we're always looking for what is an option, but you have to roll that option around and look at it all different sides, and then you're like, yeah, that's not a workable option.
Right, and you've got to be able to tell, the candidate's got to sit here and go, yeah, in 2018 I was, fumbling around for something, but time has shown this is a train wreck. We can show evidence from all over the country. This doesn't work the way they say it's going to work. So, it's not difficult to go, well, yeah, I said that, and that's what I meant, but, I'm willing to change my mind when the evidence points otherwise. What you have to look at on a lot of candidates is, how are they phrasing their Second Amendment support?
Right, and I think that's a good question, a good point. If they say, you have to respect a candidate who says, when presented with evidence to the contrary, I'm willing to consider it, and I'm willing to rephrase or reposition myself because I have new facts. And with new facts, I can now form an opinion that may vary from the prior one without those facts.
Right. If people, again, 2018, right after Parkland, a lot of us were very emotional. You don't watch, you don't watch news stories and read articles and cover a story for that long and go, yeah, I don't care about the kids. Nobody does that.
Nobody does that because everybody cares about the children. It's just trying to figure out what is the solution, because everybody's like, we've got to do something, anything. Well, no, we've got to do something, the smart thing, not we've got to do something, anything. So there's that. The do something approach is invariably a train wreck, because doing something means let's find a quick and easy solution, not the right solution. Correct. And so we've since then come up with things like Faster Saves Lives and programs like that, Faster Colorado, that all help in figuring out what to do and to help solve the problem and to get the right people in position to be able to stop something before it becomes a mass something. So
and that's
Tom,
really how you have to stop those.
It really is that when you push back, as soon as you push back, then the statistics show that you push back, that person stops, and they stop in a couple different ways or a couple different. So they either stop and give themselves up, they stop and self-terminate, or they stop because they rush someone, the stopper, and are stopped. So that's kind of the path. So I'm going to ask you, will you hang on and stick around with us? When we come back in the next segment, I want to talk a little bit about the story that you just put out about straw purchases, but I want to explore straw purchases and the front people for mobs and gangs and things like that and why they're punished harder. So we'll be right back.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Seffacool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Writing Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Writing Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, we're back, and I have to tell you that my chair just broke, and I just got 3 inches shorter. So I don't know. I'm sitting here, and the next thing I know, whoops! There, it's like I'm on a roller coaster ride. So, wow. So, no, Tom, let's talk a little bit about, there is a story that you just published about a Philadelphia woman who, they charged her with gun trafficking, but you and I know it as straw purchase. So she's buying guns using somebody's money, bringing them back to, one can only assume to a group or something, and they take them off her hands, or else she's buying them and then making a financial profit by handing them over to prohibited people. So, do you see that a lot? I mean, I tend to see it in the cities. What do you think?
Yeah. I see stories like this semi-regularly, but it should be noted that when you really look at them, a lot of these people are only buying, they're caught with less than a dozen guns haven't been sold. So while this has been a point that the anti-gun, media has made a big thing of, and, President Biden made the whole thing about, we're going to get, crack down on these straw purchases in the gun stores that are involved. And it's really does not seem to be all that many. There's a survey from 2019 that found how criminals got their guns, and it was like less than 10%, I think, that got them from a straw purchase.
I thought the number was like 2%, and it was way more. It was in the 10% got them from theft. Imagine.
Maybe. I'm focused mostly on the stolen guns when I've been writing about it, because that's really where most of the guns are coming from.
Right.
They're stolen, or they're bought from someone on the black market, which means they're stolen generally. Or, in truth, some of these are obtained via straw purchase. So essentially somebody buys them with the intent to provide them to someone else.
To sell, to someone to do that. I got a buddy to go pick that up for me. That kind of a thing, and you're sitting there going, that's probably not the right. Well, definitely not the right thing to do. Probably not the right thing to say. Even if your buddy bought it for himself and then you bought it from him, because there's a fine line there. That if I buy a gun and I don't like that gun, I can turn around and sell that gun to a private individual. But I can't take that private individual's money and go down to the gun shop and buy the gun and then just hand it to them. So there's got to be
really
reason and cause.
That's really one of the tricky things about prosecuting straw purchases is if someone's smart, it's kind of hard to catch them.
Right, it's the intent.
You're right. You can do just what you said, or make it like you did. It's like, well, I bought this gun and then I, took it to the range and I shot it and I didn't like the recoil on it, or I bought it and then I decided that I wanted this other thing more, that's all perfectly legal if you are actually doing it that way, and that makes it really tricky to stop straw purchase.
Right. I think that the only time that you would have a harder time explaining that is if they've found your gun used in a crime, and then they found a second gun used in a crime, and all of a sudden there's a common denominator, and it's you, chickie. So explain that to me.
Or they catch the known felon who committed the crime. They're like, well, where'd you get the gun? Oh, I had my buddy do this. You cut me a little bit of a deal. I'll tell you, he's provided, all my gang.
Right. Yeah.
And that's another way you kind of get caught.
Right.
But it's not as easy as some people think.
It's not. The interesting part is that this Philly woman, they're looking like they're going to throw the book at her. Yet there's a dude in Chicago that was on house arrest. You also wrote about this. He's on house arrest for murdering a handicapped guy in front of his girlfriend in 2017. And so now he's on house arrest with an ankle holster, and when they come to his house for a domestic disturbance, they find guns. And so they charge him with a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
How do you equate these two? I don't see the what is that? The balance of justice? The scales.
And let's remember, this guy had 160 charges.
Right.
That
were murder.
Murder was just one of them. He also had another 159 charges. This is not an amateur out. It's like if you're going to make a poor life choice, he decided to make it go as far poor as he could go. This is just like a step short of picking like icing on a fight.
Exponentially stupid. Right.
Right. And then they go, oh, well, naughty.
Right. So how can this Philly woman use this to justify against that? I mean, there's a spot where you've got standing or you don't have standing, or there's different cases. But I'm telling you, the Philly woman wants to be in Illinois when they prosecute her, because obviously they are soft on crime there and not in Philly.
But even
And yet,
the new Chicago mayor said that they were going to be tougher on crime. So
It's a misdemeanor. Slap, slap, slap.
yeah, and let's remember that Pennsylvania is a relatively pro-gun state. It's not great, but it's not horrible either. Illinois is not, and yet who's getting hit harder for the illegal gun? The woman in the pro-gun state, as opposed to the guy with a murder charge and 159 other charges who had a gun on house arrest in an anti-gun state.
Is that? But maybe that's part of the reason. Is it's softer on crime, and so the crime just keeps happening. I mean,
but I think the Pennsylvania, the respect for the gun demands some kind of.
Yeah, you've insulted me and my gun, right? And so you will pay, right? As opposed to, I don't know, but
it makes as much sense as anything else.
I don't know. I mean, you just sit and you look at some of these, but it's like, wow, when you do the comparison of one to another. So in the time that you've been writing for Bearing Arms, what is the story that if somebody says, oh, tell me about a story that you wrote that sticks in your head, or is your favorite story, or is your, I can't believe it story?
Oh, man. That's going to be a tough one because I've been there almost 5 years now. I've written a lot of stories. I think I've got like a quarter of the entire backlog of stories at Bearing Arms are just mine.
Oh, yours. Okay.
Yeah, we're measuring in the thousands and thousands. I've written a few though that really did make an impact, and one that sticks with me was talking about mass shootings in other countries. Well, these other countries, they had a mass shooting and they did something about it, and they haven't had a mass shooting since then. So I took a look. Like in England, they didn't have a problem with mass shootings before they had a mass shooting. The fact that they had as many mass shootings since they passed the law, doesn't really...
Yeah, before it and afterward. It was an anomaly. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Right. It's their... whatever reason in their country, they just don't have a problem. Australia, similar situation. I found a number of mass murders committed with firearms even after they passed some very strict gun control following a mass shooting. When you look at a lot of these other countries, they didn't have a problem with mass shootings before, which tells you that culturally there's something very different. When you start trying to compare countries, you can't quite do that. Just because we're Western nations doesn't mean we're the same country. Our views are very different.
And you're right. And then they roll out the different rules as to how do they gauge it and how do they do it and what do they do and then how do they report it and then is it one report of the same thing or 14 reports of the same thing? Well, we're right up at the top of the hour. So I just want to send everybody to Bearing Arms, read Tom Knighton's work. Tom, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3 and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
You hit the radio bullseye. And the home for everything Second Amendment, concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection, and it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
Okay, so we're back, and one of our listeners is asking, when is the time to challenge the idea of serial numbers? Because right now there's a big conversation about ghost guns, and they are, you heard Tom talk about, where does straw purchases come in and how many guns are used in crimes from straw purchases. The quantity of guns that are used in crimes that are in the ghost gun or non-serialized category, ghost gun being their term, and I really try hard not to use their terms, then that number is fairly minuscule compared to the number of serialized guns that are used or guns that are stolen. So whether they had a serial number or they were pre-1968.
Well, it's funny because even just a couple of years ago when they started bringing all those Russian Nagants, the 1891s in, even if they had a Russian serial number on them, they re-serial numbered them, and whoever the importer was that brought them in had to re-serial number them. So now you have 19 different companies that are serial numbering these guns with new names and numbers that people don't recognize. So instead of, if you wrote in your book that it was a 1881 Nagant, it was Russian manufactured, everybody knows what that is. But when it turns into a 1949 Golden State something or other, nobody knows what that is.
And you don't know as you're logging it into your book. You're trying to keep track of all of that stuff. It's.
I know it to look at it, but by the name, I don't recognize that. And so, if the ATF is looking for it, I mean, and I know as much about a gun as anybody. So when they're looking at it, they're not going to know.
They're not going to know that at all. So there is that. So really, right now, the push is, and this is another one of those spots where the push is for serialization of everything, and then in addition to that, then they can go to confiscation because now it's serialized. So it's serialized, and then it's background checks for everything, and then it's insurance for everything, and then
some of the arguments are that they want a insurance policy, so on that you have to list the serial numbers of it. Some of it is that they want to, they say, well, you have a registration for your car, so why wouldn't you want one for your gun or whatever? But the more people know about what you got, the less likely you are to continue to have it.
Well, there is that, and there's nothing in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that gives you it makes it a right.
Says, shall not be infringed, that no one can seem to read or understand in plain English.
They don't get that part, but they're like it's the Bill of Needs versus the Bill of Rights, and cars aren't covered in there. Sad to say, So there's things like that, but when you have to insure something, there is no protection under the law that the insurance company keeps your information confidential.
When we're watching this stuff, I mean, the Second Amendment has always been the I don't know what they would call it,
the little redheaded
sheep of the family or whatever.
Right?
And so it didn't get any respect. No one paid attention to it. You're seeing now that the First Amendment is going through some undulations, and Elon Musk, as amazingly as it is drawing your attention to look at this. And
but watch this whole Twitter fight, because now they're going, wait. Free speech doesn't mean free speech, because if you give them free speech, they may say something. I mean, literally, that is what is being said. That we didn't mean that kind of free speech. We meant free speech for us, not free speech for you. You can't say that.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that we are going to go through an awakening here where we are going to have to go through every one of those things in the Constitution and actually tell you what that means in real
and push back a little bit
today.
Well,
because you can't just allow them to tell you what they think it says. It has to have a meaning for everybody and the same meaning.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just
It was funny. We were just talking the other day about how they have these circuit courts that are like the Ninth Circuit Court or the Fourth one, and depending on the corporations use this to their advantage because if they're looking for something to happen, they can move it to this location and they just put it into that
depending on where
court.
they file their lawsuit.
Right, and so we don't get equal justice under the law due to the fact that geographically they can move to an area where it's either more liberal or more conservative, depending on how they choose to find that court system for it.
Well, and I think that's really is an interesting thing, and that's another reason why you need to know who the judges are that are being elected in your area, because do they represent and mirror the
only
information?
Criminals know judges. Regular people don't know judges.
Yeah.
So we try to stay away from judges as much as possible.
Yeah, so registration of a vehicle. So this is a comment from one of our listeners. Registration from a vehicle does not end or even reduce acts of evil, violence, or crime being accomplished in those vehicles. Now, does it? Exactly.
Well,
so you cannot legislate evil. You cannot legislate. You can't make more laws to make crimes that are already crimes more illegal.
If you look at automobiles also, they have this secondary thing where when I sell it to you now, they say, well, look at you owe me money because you sold that and made money off of that car. So even if you say you're buying a 1925 Buick, your sales tax today may be more than the car cost brand new in 1925. So they continually make money on this over and over again.
On the
a registration scheme with your gun where you have to go down and transfer that number back and forth between each other.
Will be
somewhere
taxable.
along the line there's going to be a cost incurred, and then that cost is going to be taxable.
Right, so it's more than just the fee to transfer, then it'll be a tax on it in addition.
On its value, and if you're seeing the states now, even if I have an old car, I don't need it, I tell you, I'll sell it to you for $100 because I don't really need it, and it's just sitting there going bad anyways.
They look at it and say,
well, it has a much more value than that, so now one of us, you or me, has to pay that what their surmised tax
the perceived
would be.
Value,
right?
And then the tax on the perceived value because
and it doesn't have a perceived value; it has an actual value. If I sold it to you for $100, so it's
right. But they're saying that you're a liar, pants on fire.
Well, and so what? Prove it, right?
Prove it, exactly. So there is, but once again, taxes are a place where you're guilty until proven innocent. But here's the interesting, at least the interesting part to me, is that on the federal level, they are pushing for ghost guns and serialization and red flag laws and those kind of things. At the same time, the states are going, wait, states' rights. So 25 states that have constitutional carry and a couple more states that are talking about it. All states have some derivative of concealed carry. You start to look at what the states are doing and how the states are pushing back one state after another, and this one's mirroring that one, and this one's getting that legislation and copying it. You're seeing that we know we're headed for a fight for states' rights against federal rights. So is it going to be guns? Is it going to be marijuana? Is it going to be health care? Is it going to be abortion? What thing?
It's eventually going to be control and taxation, and however they want to dress it, it's their thing. But it's all about controlling you and making sure that you pay.
Keep paying. So, and it may be the fact that we pay our federal taxes to the feds, and then the feds divvy it and push it back.
Well, they send it to the Ukraine, or they buy guns and send them to Mexico or something.
Okay, so one of our listeners just cryptically said 10th Amendment. So be a little more clear, because there's so many people who say 10th Amendment, 10th Amendment, 10th Amendment, and assume that everybody else knows exactly what you're talking about as you flesh that out. So I'm going to ask you on the 10th Amendment, the points that you're making, pop that in, flesh it out a little bit. Tell me what you're thinking in that, because I really think that there's a huge issue on states' rights as it comes to guns, amongst other things. And there's so many people who are like, I am pro-gun, I'm pro-gun. Did you see, I mean, we're living in the political realm right now of governors that are running for office and senators who are running for office and state reps and state senators. And everybody's looking for their NRA endorsements. And did they endorse me? And why didn't they give me this? And why did they give me an AQ and not an A+? I don't know what an AQ is. But some of them got AQs. And some got A+, and some of them got Fs. And so we'll just say that stands for freaking freakazoid. So when we come back, if we've got that 10th Amendment fleshed out, we'll talk about that. If not, we're going to run up some news stories, and we'll be back right after this.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, krmaradio.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Sefcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, so we are back. So on the issue of the 10th Amendment. So the 10th Amendment, the listener's comment is the federal government can only regulate, for example, taxes, interstate commerce, declaration of war, etc., by powers granted within the Constitution. The 10th Amendment leaves most everything, this is where it ends, but most everything to the states. And no state shall make or enforce any laws which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. The right to keep and bear arms is one of those privileges as defined in McDonald in 2010. Okay. So it really says that it is states' rights until the states give it away, but the states have given it back.
Well, the thing is, they started in 1818 with some of the stuff that they were just too lazy to police on their own, and some of.
And they're like, the federal government wants to do this, so okay, fine. And then when we started to get into interstates and interstate commerce, we'll send them money, and then they could do this stuff and then give us back portions of it.
And even after the Civil War, they passed some laws to try to keep the states from thinking for themselves. So pay attention, folks. They are out to get you.
So, yeah, it is the 10th Amendment. It is states' rights, but the states have to have a spine and they have to stand up. And so that's one of those things where people start to talk about a convention of the states, and that has its own set. We could go down a constitutional rabbit hole here, because if you open up for a convention of the states, then you stand to lose as much as you stand to gain. And when you open it up, you're not quite sure which direction it's going to go, and then you're standing there going, wait, what just happened? So, yeah, exactly. Okay, so anyhow, I think the 10th Amendment is a good thing. I think that
some of it is we need congressmen and senators that are willing to stick their neck out, and what we're seeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, where they're going to try to force her not to be able to run in her district because she did stick her neck out.
And the Republicans don't want to stand for her because she's a little brisk, a little gruff, a little whatever, and they are going to toss her to the wolves.
Well, and the thing that you start getting into is with the drain swamp thing versus the firebrands that are out there that don't actually think like the swamp. And so you're seeing Boberg and
MTG just get roasted.
Right.
I saw them go after Thomas Massey the other day.
Right. Some of them are right on the edge of. Sometimes they play by the rules. Sometimes they're just a little bit over, and so it's they're on dangerous ground depending on what they're speaking about.
Well, look at what they did to Ron Paul for years. I mean, they would just say that he was a wacko.
You know, the thing is Ron, he was a wacko, but he steered from the back of the bus.
Right.
And if you look at the stuff that he backed in the 70s, we're doing it today. It's the kind of thing is he got it into the national discussion, and it eventually
normalized
happened.
it. So
right.
It normalized it.
And so if you watch him today, he's doing the same thing. It's just there's so much bizarre stuff to compete with him that he's not as far out.
That's why we need the Davy Crockett Party, right? Constitutionalist the whole way with its own little theme song. Just saying, its own little theme song.
You know, it's funny is here's a story. The Brookings Institute has done a study that says that violent crime increases in high crime neighborhoods.
Right.
So
I just want to say that this is a Cam Edwards article, and Cam is generally very well-spoken and very polite. And this week in Bearing Arms, he swore a couple different times. And so he was doing little initials, and this one is, remember the comment that you learned when you were in grade school that ended with Sherlock? Right? That's the one that he rolled out, like, well, duh, Sherlock, right? So it just cracks me up when they just send a well-spoken man over the edge.
Well, but it's the thing is they put this in and then they say, well, we didn't defund the police, even though there half as many police on the street as there was. Also, too, then though even the ones that are out there are not being backed by the courts. So if they catch somebody, by the time they get to the station, fill out all the paperwork, do the stuff, the criminals been out on the street for 2 hours before the
there's that. You're right. There's all that. And, oh, by the way, the news is saying, oh, we've defunded the police. We've emboldened the criminals. There's a $950 limit that anything you steal under that. I mean, criminals are taking calculators to the store to figure out how much they can take without going over the limit.
Look at it this way. It's probably the best thing that happened to public education.
Is now they have to do math.
They have to math
I have to math my way into this. But it all circles together. And so violent crime happens in high crime neighborhoods. Well, duh, right? I mean, crime happens where crime happens. Yeah, so the rejoinder is, what gave you the first clue, Watson? Exactly. That is exactly where we're at with this. But I have to say that it just makes me laugh to see Cam Edwards swear, as crazy as that is. So if you get an opportunity, you've got to go to Bearing Arms and you've got to read it for yourself, because I am not putting it on radio. But I think it's just
that when you get an impassioned argument, it makes the reading much more fun, and you understand where it's coming from.
Right. It's like, well, what do you think then? What's leading up to this? Yeah. So yeah, crime happens where crime happens.
But I think
did someone pay for that study? That's the other part. That's the part.
But we watch all this stuff, and it's like I say that America's love affair with the timeout chair is over, and we're getting to where we're going to. The pendulum is starting to swing back to the where all of a sudden the criminal is going to be getting the short end of the stick again, like it should be.
Well,
if you get to where crime does not pay, then
it would actually be better that way. And then jail is not a place you want to be. That would be that. It shouldn't be a country club with locks on it.
Right. It's like back in the old days. If you made it to jail, you were that much farther ahead than having to deal with the police on the job.
So one of our listeners says, in my opinion, all 2A challenges adjust the perception that the federal rules are not the way it is and can be challenged. Exactly. That is it. We push because we can push.
And head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
When people use a firearm in self-defense, they could be arrested or sued and face extensive legal costs. Firearms Legal Protection provides uncapped legal defense for any member who uses a legal weapon in defense of themselves or others, providing members with peace of mind in these difficult situations by covering all attorney fees and other benefits. Use code EOTT at firearmslegal.com for a discount on all membership plans. Protect yourself. We'll protect you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Okay, folks, we are back, and we have a second guest for you on today's show on Eye on the Target Radio, because we think that there's a spot where the Second Amendment, firearms education, and politics all kind of come together, because these are the people who make the big decisions that impact and affect us. And as one of my friends said, that the Senate is where gun bills go to die. And so...
Did you move the stuff around on the desk? Because I'm almost off the screen on that.
Well, no, just...
I didn't move nowhere.
I know.
I'm like a slug. I don't... It takes me so long.
You didn't move. Okay. Well, anyhow, let's go. So, folks, we have with us Mike Gibbons, candidate for U.S. Senate for Ohio. Hey, Mike. Thanks for joining us on Eye on the Target Radio.
Thanks for having me, Amanda.
No problem at all.
Today.
Well, I really appreciate it. So let's start with, I mean, originally you decided to run for the Senate, not because as a primary focus the Second Amendment was under attack, but what kind of started to bring and mold your thought process to how you look at the Second Amendment? What was the formative information?
Well, I think I grew up, it was the attitude of my family. But I ended up, one of the majors I had in college was political science. But the school I went to was largely political philosophy. So I've spent the time, reading the debates way back in the founders' time, and recognized that pretty much everything in current affairs around the world makes it even more important that we maintain gun rights than even back then. It's it's pretty apparent what you're seeing in the Ukraine right now. If those people possess firearms the way Americans do, it would be a different story. And
it's definitely, the Ukraine has ruled gun rights into the mainstream media. So,
yes.
Do you think that it's forming the conversation in a different way now because of the Ukraine?
Well, I mean, I haven't had a conversation with anybody that most of the people I speak to, or right now I'm running for office, so I'm with largely Republicans, and I really can't, other than one time somebody yelling out where I was answering a question at a session. It was a long time ago, maybe a year ago, when we talked about the right for teachers to bear arms, and we were talking about locking down. It was during the period of time when there were a number of school shootings, and frankly, that was the only person that ever debated me on what has now become the very right that we were entitled to, constitutional carry. To me, what just happened in this state just affirmed our right to what we had all along, and I'm happy to see it. I'm happy there was a primary coming shortly, so that the governor would sign it, and
there is that. Let's just say that we know from Ohioans, we know that our governor is not necessarily pro-Second Amendment, and yet the legislator has pretty much backed him into a corner to where he's got an A+ rating with the NRA because he has voted for every gun bill that's come across his desk.
Pretty amazing.
It really is.
And not long ago he was all for red flag laws, and it was pushing that. It was one of his firm beliefs, and obviously we have the right people in the Senate and the House that wouldn't allow that to get through. But things have come around in this state. It's we're in good shape now. We just have to keep it.
We just have to keep it that way. So
right.
you are running for Senate, and that means that. So I'm going to take this clear back to the basics for some of our listeners, because when we talk about the Senate candidate in the Senate seat, it is actually one of two that represents the entire state, which makes it one of 100 that represents the United States in Washington. And so that is different than a state senator, because the state senators represent small chunks of the state, and it's broken down. So there's state reps, and then there's state senators, and then there is congressmen on a federal level and senators on a federal level. So the things that the U.S. Senate deals with, well, part of them has to do with the appointment of Supreme Court justices, and another part of it has to do with the appointment of like the ATF director. So I want to wade right into that right off the bat, is that there was the acting director of the ATF who
haven't had a permanent one since 2006. So nobody can agree on it.
They can't agree on it. So they've got an acting one, and they decided that he was not acting anti-gun enough for them. And so they've passed him over 2 times. He was good enough to be the acting. And now they have dethroned. So he is an African American and had years and years with the ATF. And now they've pulled him down to replace him potentially with another acting for a short term, and then a Cleveland-based guy. So start to just take that whole scenario right there and fill us in on your thoughts of that whole hot mess of steaming stew.
Well, I happen to know the individual that Joe Biden would like to see in that position. And I don't know him well. He's at a law firm that I've done a lot of business with over the years. I have a lot of friends there. And, I've met him. Nice guy. But it's kind of why I wouldn't have voted for the most recent nominee to the Supreme Court. She was well qualified. She had a great background, obviously intelligent. But she wants to be an activist. She doesn't want. She wants to legislate from the bench, and I think that's part of every position that right now that a leftist holds in this country. They want to change things. They have no regard for the laws. And the ATF, the head of the ATF, is supposed to enforce the laws that exist, not create new ones. He isn't to set policy. He's to look at what our Congress has laid out as the rules and follow them. And I am fearful, and I would not vote for him because he's left wing, and he believes that he has a right to dictate to American citizens how the laws should be interpreted. And if he doesn't like the interpretation, he'll just pretty much do whatever he wants to do. And so I have an automatic knee-jerk reaction to anybody that is a leftist coming into any position like this. Now, this guy is, he's got a history of prosecuting cases. A lot of, the cases that he found important were the kinds of cases that the left wing likes to prosecute. He has been to the left of center and far to the left of center his whole career. That's not somebody we want to see running the ATF.
No, and that's the part that is because it's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. So firearms is 25% of it, and yet it seems to be the only thing. And I don't understand why the alcohol folks aren't fighting about this, and why the tobacco folks aren't fighting about this, and why the explosive folks aren't fighting about this. They just leave it to the gun folks to be the front and center to say no 1,000 times no.
Well, nobody's attempting to prohibit alcohol anymore. And nobody's, and I frankly, I don't like the various rules and prohibitions they have against tobacco. And everybody's kind of grown used to it. And we kind of, and after they beat us down for a while, we grow to accept it. We ought to be able to have the personal freedoms that our Constitution allows us to have. And as you know, they prohibited alcohol at one point. It's no longer on anybody. Frankly, alcohol is a lot more dangerous than a lot of the drugs that are out there, and I know it from my own family situation. But nobody's attempting to do that. It didn't work. And generally, when you prohibit something that a lot of people want to use, it doesn't work. And the only thing that's really of issue right now is our firearms. So that's why everybody's focused on it. There's no doubt about it.
There's no doubt about it. So, yeah, it's really crazy. The 18th Amendment to the Constitution was to take a prohibition, and the 21st was to give it back. And I found their numbers to be amazing, because you're 18 and you're 21 of those two drinking ages, and so they fell right in there. So, okay, Mike, we've got about 50 seconds. What else do you want our listeners to know about you and about your Second Amendment stand?
Well, I mean, I am absolutely, in favor of all the rights under the Second Amendment. I believe firmly and strongly that our founders intended for us to have the right to bear arms. I don't think the law-abiding citizens should be afraid to walk around the streets at night. But I also believe that this isn't even about personal defense or hunting. It's about our right to fight tyranny. And that's why it was put in our Constitution. And we have a lot of people that have never read a history book. We have a lot of people that don't.
Okay, we're going to cut you off right there. So, Mike Gibbons.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to DavenportGuns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Sefcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a Rangemaster certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Okay, so we are back, and with us we have U.S. Senate candidate Mike Gibbons. And so it's really kind of multimedia trying to handle all this. I've got a TV screen. I've got the folks going on in Dallas. I've got some in South Dakota. I've got instant feedback from some of our listeners. So I'm going to read you something that I just got from the listeners. And so we've got tobacco, 480,000 deaths, alcohol, 95,000 deaths, firearms, 11,000 deaths. So why the fixation on firearms epidemic, ignoring criminal research and societal research? So what we're saying is that they say that it is a firearms epidemic, and yet it is you're 4 to 10 times more likely to die of something else under the control of the BATF and E. We're not even talking about the explosives part of it. but there you go. So, Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can tell you one of the big problems is we have, this political divide in the United States right now, and it's a fact that more Republicans own guns than Democrats. More people that live in rural areas own more guns than people in cities. And since the cities are typically Democrat, particularly the large ones, it's part of the political divide. And when you have Democrats in, we're under a risk of losing our gun rights. And we have Democrats in. They have both houses of Congress and the Supreme Court, and no, they don't have the Supreme Court, and they have the executive.
Right.
Thank God they don't have the Supreme Court. Thank God for Donald Trump, right? But
that piece of it.
Actually, what I was referring was to Ohio, which I also want to remind your listeners that there's no more important race in Ohio this year than making sure that we elect all three of the Supreme Court candidates. You'll have Republican or Democrat next to their names this time for the first time on the ballot in a very long time.
The interesting part, I'm going to interrupt you, because the interesting part is for Supreme Court justices, it's not, in my opinion, it's not whether they have an R by their name or a D by their name. It's, are they a constitutionalist or are they an activist? And so we want our judges to go by the law and interpret the law as written, and to go by the Constitution, and not be that the Constitution is a living, breathing document. And so that seems to be the thing. And so far, the judges that have an R by their name or were affiliated that way seem to be many, many more of them are constitutional judges as opposed to activist judges.
Yeah, in fact, I frankly can't tell you a candidate that could run right now that is an activist that is a Republican. So, although I've identified the group that needs to be elected as Republicans, they're all originalists, and they're all people that look at the Constitution and interpret the Constitution, not try to recreate what the laws they want. It isn't whether they like the law or not. It's what is the law. And we have Republicans in this state that need to be elected. There's going to be 3 of them on the ballot, and we can have a supermajority in the House and a supermajority in the state Senate, and it won't matter at all what we pass, because if we get a Democrat controlled, which we have now, unfortunately, because
in the courts, yes,
O'Connor, who we thought was actually ran as a Republican, is actually kind of shifted well to the left, and you can see the trouble we have right now. Some of the cases that have just come out of that court are beyond belief, and the
one of those cases that just came out was about criminals, and the fact that you cannot use the fact that the criminal is likely to commit another crime to, it's their habitual status, to whether they're
160-time felon or something.
160-time felon, and are they a threat to society? And you can't use that in the consideration in sentencing. That's a crock of cheese.
Not in sentencing and bail, in setting bail.
That's setting bail.
That's the Dubose case. Yeah, that's the Dubose case.
So you get to set them back out.
You're not allowed to take public safety. It's only the risk of them not appearing in court that you need to be able to consider, which, frankly, is one of the most leftist opinions or rulings in the entire United States. There's only 2 other states that treat it that way, and it's not. Well,
we started our show by talking about a case in Chicago where someone has been charged with 160 felony counts and yet was sent home with an ankle bracelet, and then had a domestic violence call, and they found they found guns and that obviously he wasn't allowed to have in his possession even after that. So there are issues with those types of things. I want to circle back to something that you said because it was stuck in my head. And you know the gun owning in the inner cities. One of the reasons, do you know who Dr. John Lott is from Crime Research?
No, I don't.
Okay, so he is somebody, and this is to our whole listening audience. If you have an opportunity, Google this man and find out who he is, because he's a guy who does research on crimes, and on gun crimes specifically, but on crimes. And and it's crimeresearch.org, and that organization talks about underserved communities and why there aren't guns in those communities. And a lot of reasons why is that if one guy who has a name that's similar to other people in that community has a felony, then the ATF will give more people in that community denials, and so that they can't get guns. And once they're popped on their top of their head and told, too bad, you can't have it, they don't come back and try again. And there was the belief that if you had a felon in your family, that you couldn't have a gun in your household. And so, which also isn't true. They don't disarm somebody because someone else isn't allowed to have a gun. It has to stay under your control. But so what happens is that we've taken the underserved communities and we've priced the gun licenses to where they can't afford them. We've priced the gun shops so that they can't be in those communities. We've made it to where they're not allowed to have gun ranges for them to practice in. And then we've dumped the crime into their communities, and so they're just sitting ducks. And so part of our job is to educate that firearms are for everyone and that they should be able to have access to them, because personal defense is for everyone, and it's our job to help them to be able to defend themselves and their family. Because I don't care what color you are, black, white, green, purple, you love your family just as much and just as hard as somebody who lives out on a farm or who lives in a condo or who lives in a high-rise apartment. It doesn't matter.
Very important. Very important. And I think we've seen a trend in that direction, particularly with the riots in the last couple of summers. We've seen more inner-city residents acquiring guns, and frankly, I think it makes it safer. Now, when we had concealed carry, I'd ask every policeman I run into, I say, have you ever seen a concealed carry holder rob a bank or stick somebody up? And they go, no, it doesn't happen. It's not the concealed carry people that we have to worry about. It's the criminals that get the guns illegally. We need to enforce the laws, Amanda. We enforced the laws and made sure the people that were prohibited from owning a gun actually couldn't carry one around, everything would be just fine. We would have much lower crime.
Exactly. There we go. Okay, I'm right at the top of the hour. I'm going to have to go, folks. Check out Mike Gibbons, candidate for U.S. Senate. What he says makes a whole lot of sense. It's not the guns, it's the criminals. Man, bingo.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.